What do you make of the way President Trump has reacted to the op-ed in Bob Woodward's book?
Well, you know, this is his worst nightmare. It's the whole media enterprise turning against him. And this is a man he's a 72-year-old man. He has spent the better part of 5 decades working very hard to keep himself front and center in the public eye. And he's done that through a variety of methods, including, by the way, anonymously leaking and slagging business competitors, friends, associates, his ex-wives, to reporters, using exactly the same methods he condemns in the New York Times op-ed. And now the sort of popular consensus around this is that he is a self-absorbed, bonkers delinquent who is driving the ship of state into the abyss. And he is working hard to get around that.
Okay, but here's what's crazy. There are people who attended Trump's fundraiser in the Hamptons 2 weeks ago who would concur he's a self-absorbed delinquent who's a business buffoon. But they like those policies, so keep on rocking on.
But that's a separate set of issues. Those are people who want a tax cut and deregulation, and they're willing to let the kid in the garage light off firecrackers around the lawnmower because they're getting those things.
Exactly. So why does this change anything?
Because he doesn't care about policy. He's so self-absorbed that he won't focus on migrant children separated from their parents at the border. He won't focus on North Korea. He won't focus on policy. What he cares about is his reputation, and that's why they've also launched a mole hunt in the White House.
Okay, Christine, President Trump has had a nonsense buffoon reputation for his whole career, and he still became the president of the United States. So while we all sit here can say, oh my gosh, this is a terrible day for the president with the midterms coming, I don't know that it is, because from a policy perspective, Brett Kavanaugh is about to get confirmed. You got 2 Supreme Court judges, a laundry list of federal judges who've been put in place. And if you think about all the deregulation and the tax cuts, people voted for it before, and they could vote for it again. So is this time really different?
You raise a really important point that I think is not...
You were going to say incredible, so you can go.
Okay. Incredible, important point that I think America doesn't focus on enough, which is that while all of this is going on every week in a different way, his policies are going through.
Mike Pence's policies, yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're seeing the environmental department destroyed, regulations put in on all kinds of levels. So
the judiciary changed.
The judiciary changed. So from the perspective of Donald Trump and the country running great, in a way it is in his mind, because all the bad, conservative, pro-corporate policies he wants to put through are going through. While at times, no criticism to the collective us, we're talking about these things that end up being kind of optics. Now, the thing I think is different here, you're right. The people who are benefiting from the tax cuts, who are benefiting from the environmental deregulation, they're not going to say a word. They're going to keep writing the checks because life is good for them. But there's a bunch of independents, particularly women independents, who are not deciding. This is the kind of dysfunction outward and distractions and craziness that makes those voters uncomfortable, who don't know maybe the whole swath of the policies, but kind of like that he talks like it is. This will affect them, and I think that will have an effect.
Does any of this bother the GOP? Does Mitch McConnell actually care, or is he just going to scurry down the hallway, avoid reporters, and not look at Twitter, and sit in his office and look up at the screen and see Brett Kavanaugh and say, I got that done?
Well, he's in the Senate. I don't think the Senate necessarily cares right now. I think the House has every reason to care. I think Mitch McConnell has his finger to the wind. I think the midterms are going to be a litmus test on where all these things reside. One point I want to make, though, about, like, we've always known he's a buffoon. I actually don't think in the heartland of America he was perceived as a buffoon. I think you can't underestimate the traction The Apprentice as a television show
I agree with you.
had with. I think they saw him as a can-do businessman, competent, capable, would go to Washington, would shake up get rid of gridlock and shake the machine to its roots. Not that he was so unsophisticated, undisciplined, and ignorant that he actually would go there and make things worse.
Okay, but do you believe that base who watched him on The Apprentice in their home and believed him as this straight-talking, can-do business guy, do you believe they've actually changed their opinion? Because the president is also very successful day in and day out, discounting the media, calling us the fake news, when he can call us biased All you need to do is fact check the president. He is a habitual liar who at this point has told almost 5,000 lies. So when I get on TV every day and fact check them, they could say they're out to get us, but we're not. We're simply telling the truth. And he tells the heartland of America, no, they want to get me.
I mean, of course, that's what journalists are doing, is just telling the truth and checking the facts. Now, do I think the, let's call it 30 to 35% of America who are still for him are going to move? No. I think he has his base, he's keeping his base. But I don't think if you're the Republicans or you're the Democrats in this case, you're focusing on the base. I mean, the Republicans are trying to keep it, of course, but the real question is the undecideds, the swing votes, the voters who haven't been activated, the independent voters.
The suburban voters.
The suburban woman, college-educated voter who may have voted for him but really had a lifetime.
Or who maybe didn't go and vote the last time.
Correct. That's the question, and this, the 30% not moving. This and what we're talking about, whether it's the Kavanaugh hearings, whether it's Kavanaugh, whether it's the book, whether it's the op-ed, that does affect those voters. And we've seen it already in Democratic turnout in the specials.
How much chaos does this op-ed, does Bob Woodward's book cause inside the White House? We know that the president is consumed by it, but it's not like he actually works on any legislative policy on a good day. Is it really riling things up?
It has turned an already chaotic and dysfunctional White House on its head. Of course,
hold on. From a communication standpoint, yes. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is having another bad day.
I mean, we know from the Times reporting last night that Trump convened a meeting with his own son-in-law to take a loyalty oath. They have pondered putting their own staff through
like the Boy Scouts or something, you know. I love you, Donald Trump, now and forever.
I promise to be
right,
good.
Exactly.
You know, they've pondered polygraph tests for their own White House team. They have pondered making them sign sworn affidavits.
But isn't that just another day in the wacky house?
Well, it may be there, but that's not how a healthy organization functions.
It's never been a healthy organization.
But you can't get things done if you're off the rails. What he cares first and foremost about is a cult of personality. And that's why all the wheels of the White House are turning around that.
I'm just
saying, I don't know that the president works on getting things done. He signs executive orders.
He works on things that affect his reputation.
Right.
And the only thing you know about whether or not this stuff's going to get traction in the heartland is he's making it front and center of his speeches in the heartland. He thinks this could get traction.
That's a really good point.
I think we also have to think about the effect on the White House. Forget the president for a second, is the staff. Must be a terrible place to work, although I have no sympathy for anybody who decided to go into this administration. But now the staff has to be even more paranoid because they're going to come looking for you. That does affect how quickly policy can be moved forward and things can be executed, because paranoia breeds, you know, complete frozenness. It shuts people down. They're afraid to do anything.
Can I make
Great way to live.
I know.
You know, when Trump sued me for libel for a book I wrote, I was at the New York Times, and at one point they deposed me for 2 days. And in the course of that deposition, his lawyers took out a list of everyone, Trump insiders and Trump acquaintances, and began asking me, have you ever spoken to them? Have you ever interviewed them? Going through the list, and I realized...
Because he was trying to figure out
who my anonymous sources were. And once I realized they were on this fishing expedition, I said, you know what, I'm not going to answer these questions. And his lawyer said, we'll remind you you're under oath and you're required to. I said, I'm still not going to answer them. And my lawyers intervened and we moved on. But this is another piece of the old Trump playbook. One is use anonymity to slag people. The second is if you need to battle back, go on a mole hunt. That's what he did to me during our litigation. That's what he's trying to do in his own White House right now.
Right. It's a kind of one of his standard operating procedures, and it's terrible. And to use a deposition that way is just reprehensible.
Captain Queeg.
Yes, exactly.
You know, in the Caine Mutiny. You know, is who ate the strawberries. Yep. That's how paranoid this guy is.